the sky over Zhengzhou that day was no longer the calm blue it used to be. Thick, heavy black clouds, like massive boulders, quietly gathered over the city, blotting out the last rays of sunlight. The air grew so heavy that every breath carried the damp taste of earth and the chill blowing in from gusts of wind that slashed through the streets. At first, it was only a few scattered raindrops, falling onto tin roofs and pavements, producing a drumming sound like the opening beats of a tense symphony building toward its climax. But then, in just a few brief minutes, the sky seemed to tear apart. Massive sheets of water came crashing down, no longer rain, but white curtains of water pouring as if someone had flung open the gates of an ocean suspended above. Rainfall reached up to 150 millimeters in just 3 hours, a terrifying figure far beyond any forecast scenario. The city's aging drainage system was quickly overwhelmed, water rising step by step, spilling over sidewalks and submerging car tires in seconds. The rushing current carried away trash, tree branches, even household items, swirling into dark, menacing whirlpools in the streets. The city government was forced to immediately raise the emergency response level from level 4 to level 3, a signal that danger had reached the red alert threshold. As sirens wailed across many districts, residents hurried to find shelter. Shops, restaurants, and offices closed early. The clatter of rolling metal shutters echoed amid the pounding rain, creating an atmosphere straight out of an apocalyptic film. In narrow alleyways, children were pulled inside in a rush, while adults scrambled to move motorbikes and cars to higher ground. Water poured into underpasses and underground parking garages at a terrifying speed, swallowing vehicles within minutes. On main roads, vehicles crawled in single file through water reaching halfway up their wheels. Each wave from a moving car splashed onto the sidewalks, flooding them even deeper, turning them into makeshift canals. Streetlights glowed dimly through the thick curtain of rain, their weak yellow light swallowed by the ashen sky. The familiar sounds of the city, car horns, street vendors, had vanished, replaced by the relentless roar of water and the whistling wind slicing through deserted streets. By now, no one believed this was just another heavy rain. Something unseen and oppressive had descended, making everyone feel as if a giant hand was tightening its grip on the city, pressing it slowly but surely beneath the rising waters. And this was only the beginning. Just a few hours after the torrential rain began, Zhengzhou had transformed into a labyrinth of water and chaos. Roads that were once packed with traffic had turned into muddy, swirling rivers, as if trying to swallow anything that drifted by. Underpasses, where thousands of people passed through every day, were now shrouded in darkness, water rising all the way to car roofs, releasing large bubbles that burst on the surface like the city's final gasps for breath. On the highways, whole sections were submerged, long lines of cars trapped in place, forcing drivers to abandon their vehicles and wade through icy water in search of an escape. The Zhengzhou River, once a gentle, winding ribbon around the city, had burst its banks. The floodwaters, like a beast breaking free from its chains, roared into residential areas, sweeping away fences, flower pots, furniture, and even cars weighing several tons. Every alleyway had become a violent current, battering house walls, smashing doors open, and tearing advertising boards to shreds like scraps of paper. The East Railway Station, a symbol of Zhengzhou's pride in its transport network, was not spared. All train services were abruptly cancelled, the station shut down, and thousands of stranded passengers watched the flood creep up the stairs like a giant snake. Buses stopped running, taxis vanished from the streets, leaving behind a city where every route was sealed off by the invisible force of the flood. Schools and universities closed in an emergency. Students who couldn't make it home in time sought refuge in high-rise buildings. Public events were cancelled indefinitely. Stadiums and squares stood deserted, filled only with the sound of rain and water pounding against cold concrete walls. But the greatest fear came not just from the floodwaters, but from the darkness slowly swallowing the city. In many areas, power was cut entirely to prevent electrical fires. Streetlights went out, homes sank into an early night. Mobile phone signals flickered and then disappeared altogether, cutting people off from their loved ones. That strange silence, broken only by the hiss of the wind and the rush of water, made Zhengzhou feel like an abandoned city, where all the sounds of life had been swept away. In the cold, merciless floodwaters, people suddenly realized just how small they were. And this nightmare, they knew, had only entered its second act. As darkness began to engulf the city, Zhengzhou was thrust into a brutal race, where every passing minute could claim another life. The wailing sirens of fire trucks and ambulances echoed through the rain like funeral bells. Rescue teams were deployed at full strength, moving in groups clad in life jackets, headlamps strapped on, wading through chest-deep water to reach houses cut off by the flood. In some, residents trapped on the second floor screamed desperately for help. In others, the elderly and children were hurriedly lifted into inflatable boats, their faces pale from cold and fear. Along the main streets, high-powered pumps roared non-stop, draining water from basements and underpasses, yet the flood kept pouring in as if mocking human efforts. In some low-lying districts, the current was so fierce that rescuers had to tie themselves to power poles or building walls to avoid being swept away. Every step in the freezing water was a gamble, an open manhole, a collapsing patch of ground, or a live wire hidden in the murky depths could end it all instantly. Emergency shelters were hastily set up, dim light from generator-powered bulbs casting a weak glow on faces lined with worry. In hospitals, doctors and nurses worked tirelessly, tending to those injured by debris, slips, or suffering from hypothermia after prolonged immersion. Dry blankets were handed out in haste, and a cup of hot water became a rare comfort amid the chaos. The city's loudspeaker system blared continuously, urgent voices warning of danger zones and urging immediate evacuation. On social media and mobile apps, emergency alerts flooded in, complete with maps marking high-risk areas. But for many, the loss of cell service meant those warnings never reached them. The danger didn't just come from the water. Experts warned of secondary disasters. Landslides could bury houses in hilly areas, roads and bridges, hollowed out by the current, could collapse at any moment, waterlogged walls could give way without warning. The air was thick with the smell of mud and rust, and a sense that something even worse was looming made everyone shudder. Zhengzhou was no longer a city, it was a battlefield, where humans and nature clashed in a desperate fight for survival, and the outcome remained a shadowy uncertainty in the dense curtain of rain. As the flood swept away everything people once knew, Zhengzhou entered an even harsher phase, one where life was measured in sips of clean water, faint beams of light, and the few breaths one could still take. Supermarkets and convenience stores, once overflowing with goods, now stood with bare shelves. Residents rushed to buy bottled water, instant noodles, flashlights, batteries, anything to sustain them through the looming darkness. Authorities imposed price controls, but fear and hoarding instincts turned every shop counter into a silent battlefield. In the outskirts, dams and bridges were monitored around the clock. Every hairline crack in a dam wall, every strange rumble in the night, kept patrol teams on edge. No one could forget past dam failures, when a single mistake meant an entire region vanished beneath raging waters. In the city, underground facilities such as underpasses and basement car parks were sealed off with warning signs. One wrong step there could be the last. The demand for medical aid skyrocketed. Hospitals received a steady stream of patients, injured, shivering, or exhausted from rescue. Ambulances cut through the rain with red lights flashing, leaving streaks of color in the pitch-black streets. Doctors and nurses worked in shifts without rest, still unable to care for all the incoming victims. The cries of children, the groans of the elderly, and the shouts for missing loved ones blended into a sound that gripped the city's heart. Meanwhile, communications in many places had yet to be restored. Dead mobile phones lay useless on tables like cold, lifeless metal. People turned to pen and paper or public loudspeakers to send out search messages. Each announcement made the crowd pause, listening with a fragile hope. Conclusion: a city on the edge of survival. Zhengzhou was no longer the bustling administrative hub it once was, but a fortress besieged by water on all sides. More than 12.6 million residents lived in constant alert, haunted every second by the same question: would the city survive this trial? The rain had not stopped. The sky remained a dull, ashen gray like cooled ashes. And in every home, every shelter, every darkened alley, there were eyes wide open in the night, not from sleeplessness, but from the fear that the dawn of tomorrow might never come.